block slop, aggro slop. How about a sloppy Joe? Fresh and buds now.
Fresh and
All right, folks, welcome back to yet another episode of Fresh and Buds. I'm your host, Tommy Fresh, and you are all my buds. It is episode 236. Compendium of Wraith is out now, and we are joined by the famous Zayne Johnson of the Attack Action Podcast. How's it going, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here, Tommy.
I'm excited to have you. This is finally kind of like the last infinity stone of the Attack Action Podcast that have been a guest on this podcast. You know, in a lot of ways I refer to, you know, the Battle Bros over there as my sister podcast. Although, you know, they've been around a little longer. I understand, but, you know, I owe this podcast to Taylor, of course, so. And by proxy or extension.
I'm sure Taylor would refer to it as your father podcast. That's what he would like to call it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sure. But we'll duke that out another time with him. But we got a great episode for you all. It is the release of Compendium of Wraith. You know, I did the set review last week. It was long. It was arduous. It was fun. And, you know, now we're getting to kind of get a feel for at least what the community thinks of this set. And, you know, we're also starting to look at some tournament results of mostly just Silver Age and going into the PQ season that starts right away with Silver Age this weekend. It's going to be interesting. But before we do all that, we got to get to know Zayn. Let's start from the beginning with trading card games. Not all the way at the beginning, but trading card games. When did they come into your life? When did Flesh and Blood come into your life?
Yeah, so I grew up, you know, in the boom of the Pokemon age, and I never got to really buy or have or play Pokemon in the way that I would have wanted to as a, you know, 6-year-old in the 90s. And so, you know, I'm sitting around during COVID. I'm looking for something to do, and Monarch spoiler season was kind of happening, and I have 2 brother-in-laws, and they were trying to get me into Flesh and Blood, and they didn't even play yet, but they were like, look at all these, like, you know, content creators making videos for this new game. Like, you should get into it. We should all buy some cards. This was obviously the Monarch bubble. If for those of you who were there, it was an ugly time to be buying cards. Yeah. Everything was very at the time. But yeah, I just, you know, I started playing with them, playing webcam games with whoever I could get my hands on. And then it just like really like stuck with me, and I never have been able to, you know, really, you know, get it out of my system. It just is fun and fresh every time I am able to play. And so yeah, it's been since like early 2021, I think is about when that happened. Maybe end of 2020.
Yeah. I mean, so this is your first like real TCG then? Like, you know, you dabbled a little bit in Pokemon as a kid, but this is it?
Yeah, never played Magic, never came from any other game. I own about 100 Magic cards, and it's just the Dan cube. Nice. So if you've never played that, it's a great 2-player cube, but that's the extent of my Magic experience.
Okay, all right, cool. I always like to, you know, have like a like Flesh and Blood, kind of like OG in a way. Like obviously, like, you know, I would say anywhere, and this I say this because I include myself in it, but like anybody who played from Welcome to Wraith to Monarch is kind of like in the OG phase. Like it's when a lot of people kind of got exposed to the game, and it was also like you had to work for it a little bit too, right? Because like you said, it's like webcam games, this, that, and the other thing. I always love talking to people like that. Now, outside of like obviously Flesh and Blood, which you play a lot, like leading up to that, were you a gamer? Were you a board gamer? Because, you know, I know some of your co-hosts were big into board games going into this as well. Is that your vibe?
Definitely, yeah. So growing up in the house, we would play, you know, card games, anything, some simple board games. And then in college and post-college, I really started to get into the more complicated board games. And then more and more, I just like identified that I wanted to play board games more than my friends did. And I think that that's where I was primed for a TCG, where I was like, oh, that's where those people go who want to play board games more than their friends. They go into TCGs and they play tournaments on the weekend. And so that's why it was kind of a natural progression of, I play board games once a week. Now I play them 3 times a week. My friends don't want to play them more than that, but I do. And now I'm playing TCGs.
Yeah, and I do feel like, Flesh and Blood's game engine feels closer to board games than most other TCGs, which I think it makes a nice like hop over to it. Now, we've mentioned Attack Action Podcast a couple times now, friends of the show. How did you get involved, with those clowns?
So, speaking of OGs, the first big event in the US, that Vegas calling, which was the release of Tales of Aria, and then the chain prism format for that calling. So Isaac, former host of the Attack Action Podcast, and I played in the calling, and we played. I was on chain, and he was on Levia. So we had a very cool. I'd never seen Levia in paper like that. We had a very cool game. I did some ridiculous 30 damage chain broken thing, and then we had a good conversation about it after. And then the next day they were doing like Tales of Aria drafts as side events. And we got paired up round 1 of the side event, Isaac and I again. And so then we were chatting a little bit more about that. And then I had heard of the Attack Action Podcast, and I had seen like they were wearing the shirts for it. So I went and like found the podcast, and I heard him tell the story of playing against me in the calling. And so I like commented or something, and they replied. And then when that Nationals rolled around, which was just a couple months later, I didn't have anyone to room with. I was the only one in San Diego who qualified, I think. And I just randomly sent a message to Isaac like, hey, do you need someone to room with? And he was like, yes, actually. And so then we roomed in Orlando. We both happened to show up with basically the same Ice Lexi deck. And then ever since then, I've just been friends with the Attack Action Podcast. And when Isaac stepped down, I was like, you know what? Why not? I'll join in and be in on the fun.
Yeah. And it is fun. Isaac obviously had that legendary run at that Nationals, which was awesome. And then, I think it was like a week later that Yuki went on to win with Lexi at Canadian Nationals. Very cool stuff. Now that's like old Flesh and Blood history at this point, which is kind of crazy to say, but
no, I know.
It is obviously that podcast has gone through some evolutions, right? Started with Taylor and Isaac, and then, Isaac stepped down. You got Colin involved, doing some kind of, Colin and his smooth, buttery voice is doing Colin things. And then, you and Blake kind of come in now as well. And it is a cast of characters. And I mean this in the best way. What would you say your role is with the Attack Action Podcast compared to the other guys?
I think it bounces between two things, and they're similar and different depending on the day. But I think one is to be kind of plugged into competitive play, maybe more so than the other 3 guys, like really in touch with as much as I can the latest developments, and what I expect to see at events. Like I think I provide a bit of context that maybe some of them don't have. But then also I think I'm like the devil's advocate in a positive way. I think like we sometimes we assume the worst of LSS, and I think we want the game to be as good as possible, and sometimes that comes out as very critique or whatever it may be. And so sometimes my job is just to redirect, bring it back, and say, well, what about what if maybe this is not their fault, or what if they actually have good intentions? And so sometimes it's the voice of reason. Sometimes I'm just a brick wall that I won't let them convince me that something is, bad when I'm just convinced it's not. But it depends on the day. It really depends on the day.
Yeah, and probably the subject as well, because it's
Sure.
I'm sure you can budge on a few things, but I totally get being. I think people are very reactionary, attack reactionary. Sometimes, and that's okay. I think it's good to have that in the community, but also, you gotta stand your ground, be devil's advocate or angel's advocate, if that even makes sense. Now, you're plugged in with the competitive side of things. How much are you playing? You guys just had, you're from the San Diego area. You just had an event. How'd that go?
Huge event. Everyone's talking about how big it was.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It was a very, very small event. It was set up for failure, I think, on a few different ways. Or failure, maybe not the word, but it was not set up for success, given that it was the day of release on Valentine's Day weekend in an expensive city on President's Day. There was a lot of factors as to why the attendance was low. But all that to say, the event was very smooth. It was very fun. There's a lot of Silver Age. My calling didn't go so good, but the showdown went much better. Was able to pull out a top 8 there. And was glad to just have an event in San Diego, even though we may not ever get another one after the attendance numbers.
What was the final attendance?
Like 171 or something.
Yeah,
for the calling.
Yeah, it's brutal. But it is tough.
I think it was the second smallest after the LL Chicago. I could be wrong on that, but I heard someone say that, which is not ideal.
Yeah. I mean, especially for Silver Age, which is, for all intents and purposes, I think very hot right now, and I think is probably trending in a good direction. But, the optics sometimes, it doesn't look so great. But, triple digits, we'll take that, right? Like, that's like something to take to the bank, right? Now, you were on Briar, if I'm not mistaken, at least for the shout. Was it for the calling and the showdown or the battlegrounds?
Yeah. Showdown, yeah.
Oh, showdown. Yeah, battlegrounds is the new thing, right? Oh.
The new local,
yeah,
kind of battle hardened, kind of PQ event. Kind of feels like a middle ground between that. But yeah, it was on Briar for both events.
And
wasn't what I necessarily wanted to be on, but I also found myself enjoying the deck more than I thought I would. So that's ultimately why I landed on it. I'd been playing Enigma the whole season, because it was very fun to play Enigma outside of CC, where all of these, she was so defined by her most powerful plays, like her Traverse and her Mirror Guy, and parking all one of your 12 D reacts. And then you just strip all that away, and it's like, okay, well, what is Enigma in this format? And it's like a very different beast, and it was fun to play, but ultimately couldn't get the Ninja matchup where I wanted it. The Briar matchup was okay, and then the Great Axe was a little sketchy. So I just was play some aggro, let's play Briar. And it kind of scratched some of the warm fuzzies of playing Ranger. It's certainly not Ranger, but there's some elements of the non-attacks and attacks, weaving together that felt like Azalea of old.
Well, it's kind of interesting, right? Because I remember when, in this pre-pen Silver Age, there was a lot of talk about Azalea, right? It seemed like a pretty solid deck. Sending a big dominated arrow with a bunch of on hits is still good, right? No matter what way you slice it. What do you think is happening here with that deck, and why it isn't as powerful as people kind of initially thought?
Yeah, I think it's two things. I think one is the prevalence of the tall D reacts in the format. So the Guardians are, not the most represented, but they are powerful, and there's certainly going to be some amount in the room. And then, a top deck plays Shunt, so you get another tall D react. But I think the biggest factor, at least that spooked me off of it, was the new boots from Compendium that block 1 and then remove Dominate.
Oh.
I think just the combination of a deck that can run D-Reacts and then that, it's just very easy to run out of cards really quickly as Azalea. And I haven't tested it like extensively into the new boots, Foothold or Unflinching Foothold or whatever, but just it was enough to scare me off of the deck, and I think a lot of other people as well. There was only one in the whole room in San Diego.
Oh wow, yeah, that checks out. I mean, like we're gonna talk about the format a little bit, but it does seem to be kind of in a weird spot. We'll see how this season goes, right? Like we have very limited data, like in terms of results. Yeah. But this weekend's going to be a big tell, I think. And we're a lot of us content creators will be talking about whatever graphic that LSS posts on Monday. But I want to know about CC and how you're feeling about that going into the second half of PQ season, unless of course you qualify in the Silver Age side.
Yeah, it's interesting to me that like I upon seeing all the compendium cards, I didn't immediately go, oh wow, this is going to change CC so much. Now, I think it will, but there isn't like the 2 to 3 things you can just like point at and go like, that's going to be format defining. Mm-hmm. We have Wobble, the Acilio card, which will certainly be relevant, not in every matchup, but will be relevant. And then the Phi Art of War is interesting. We'll see how powerful it ends up being. I know it reads really powerful, but I think it is a lot of hoops to jump through still. So, we'll see what it ultimately lands on. I do like that they printed 2 meaningful pieces of Marlin support. Mm-hmm. I'm still waiting for my quiver that just says this is a gold token, because wearing Crown of Dominion is just the worst. Mm-hmm. Like, as a ranger, you're defined by your headpieces. Like, at least in my mind, like I played a lot of Azalea and Lexi who are so deeply connected to their legendary headpiece. And so like as Marlin playing as Crown of Dominion, it just feels so bad. So gold quiver LSS, we need it. But I think like the Cheating Scoundrel and her new Arsenal Destruction arrow is like meaningful upgrades.
Oh yeah.
Like she can basically codex CNC now, which is great. I love that.
Yeah, no, it is. She definitely got some real sauce, and I played against. I think we were talking before we started recording. I was playing against a Marlin, and I got to see those 2 cards and a third card, the one that removes the energy counters played against me. That one felt less meaningful. The other 2 definitely felt pretty meaningful. So yeah, I think she looks good, right? Like I don't know. I'm a Riptide player, right? So I'm like, we're not defined by our headpiece. We're playing Crown of Providence, but
he also does kind of feel attached to that one to me. I don't know if that's just, it's not like a ranger piece. Obviously, it's a little more generic, but to me, Crown of Providence is kind of the Riptide one because it's like, oh, you sent CNC, I'll put this trap to the bottom.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it does in a lot of ways, and then like. After you use it, you get to trench anyway. So unless, there's some anti-trench people out there, and I don't agree with them at all. The card's awesome, but, I digress. So, it feels like a lot of the actual Ranger stuff we got was Riptide stuff, right? Like traps, and new versions of traps. I've been testing some of it. I don't know if it's any good, but it is cool, so there is that. What are your takes on the traps? Like, obviously, the pump ones are interesting, at least from the perspective of a true Ranger player.
I think it's incredible design, and I think that they are very clearly common power level. You know what I mean? Like, I think the rares and majestics or whatever of that kind of design is yet to be seen. And maybe we have to be careful about how many traps we print, but amazing design. I love the concept. None of them feel very impactful to me yet. They give Riptide some more blues, which is obviously a category that Ranger has been very weak in forever. Mm-hmm. Riptide has much more than the rest of the Rangers, just given he has the specializations that make sense with his game plan. But I would have liked to see a little bit more power on them. Like the one that makes people discard, everyone reads that card and thinks like, wow, how powerful is that? And it's like, okay, yes, it does, but
How
it's
often?
Like, it's live on what? Like Rabble, and that's it? Like,
well, the idea is, right, you codex and then hopefully draw into that, or you frailty trap first, and then
sure.
It's very situational, but I guess all traps are. But the other two actually I like quite a bit, right? Like the one that creates the courage and the one that creates quicken, because you can create those on your side if you really want to, because like why, you can give yourself a quicken and then next turn go CNC Murky Water or something like that. And
totally,
that feels pretty good. But the one that I do really like is the Majestic, I'm forgetting the name of it off the top of my head, that will destroy what do you call it? An enchantment. An aura. Yeah.
I want to reread this because
it buffs for it's a red 0 cost, buffs for 3, blocks for 2, and if the opponent has created 2 or more auras, you can destroy an aura they control, I believe.
Oh yeah. Oh, the Majestic. Yes. Rune Snare. This is Yuki's card. Yeah. Yeah.
So like that one feels like actually impactful for at least sideboards, but it's still a 0 for 3 buff, right? So that was the one that really felt like we actually got a little something, and then the blues were fine. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about Pen and like from a macro standpoint, whether it kind of hits the mark. But before we do that, we do have to get your fresh faves. We've been talking about Ranger. I'm assuming some of these cards are going to be Ranger cards, so let's start with your favorite hero.
My favorite hero of all time. It's close between a few, but it has to be Lexi.
Why is that?
Well, she was the first hero where I think I really found my style with the game, because I started the game with Chain, and I think he was just, he was cool in and of itself, and what he was doing was very solitaire in some ways. Like he was just playing his side of the table, which was helpful for me when learning and also playing webcam games. I didn't have to worry too much about what they were doing. I was just playing aggro. But then when Tales of Aria came out, I played against some Briar early on, and I was just like, I want to beat that. Like I want to control that with like a disruptive class. And then building out that Ice Lexi deck with the Shock Charmers, you fuse the Chilling Ice Vein, you dump into Shock Charmers. That was just like my favorite thing to do, was like make the other deck uncomfortable. And that was the first hero that really did that for me. Now, a few more have done that as well. Like New gets very close to being one of my favorite decks of all time. But I think there was something about Lexi's like trickiness of like how to manage your double arsenal, how to manage like keeping your opponent off disrupting you while setting up turns, don't get fatigued, but also like push damage. Like it was just a really nice balance. I know come the end when it was all fuseless, people kind of, got sick of it, and I totally get it. I did too. But the ice deck into that early fuseless deck was like my favorite deck they've ever put together.
Yeah, that was when Lexi definitely felt like had like an identity. The fuseless stuff was interesting to say the least. But now here's a question for you, a little follow-up question before we get to your favorite weapon. What do you think the functional reprint of Lexi is going to look like? Are we getting split like we did with Briar, or are they going to give us something like Jarl?
I really hope we get something closer to Jarl. I think the split would work, but I think neither hero would be as close to as interesting as Lexi as I would want them to be. I think part of her intrigue is the balance between damage and disruption, which is the lightning and the ice. So I hope we get something closer to Jarl. Her hero text obviously was very minimal or medium. Like her hero text isn't what made her powerful. It was the bow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So, and in a similar way, like Oldham's hero text isn't necessarily what made him great. It's part of it. But the ice, the earth, and the guardian keywords were a bigger part. So I kind of just hope they give us Ice Lightning Ranger, real simple hero text, and let us kind of do the rest.
Yeah. Well, they got to be careful with the bow. They definitely have to be careful with the bow. So,
okay. Wait. I have a question for you about the bow.
Okay.
If Voltaire said exactly what it said before, but it said you can only choose each mode once, would you think it would be fair? So it's the same modes, but instead of saying like twice per turn, choose either one, you basically had a +1 and a go again every turn.
That's tough actually, because the question is, how often were you doing +1 twice, right? So I guess like if you had the bolt and shot stuff going, you do +1 twice. Yeah. If you had like no bolt and shots, if you have no bolt and shots, that feels like a real hindrance, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it would feel a little bit better.
There's a lot of blowouts to bolt and shot these days. They've printed a lot of ways, like there's fearless confrontation now, there's drag down, there's a lot more ways to kind of. Frailty trap was always there.
Yeah.
Or at least I've been hit with my fair share of those. But yeah, I don't know. I thought that was like an elegant solution to the bow problem. Obviously, that's not what they'll print. They'll give us a little bit more creativity. But I think part of the frustration with Lexi was when she goes, go again, and she's holding a card. And it's like, is it Codex? Is it Arctic? Yeah. Is there any way to know? And it's like, oftentimes the answer was no. And it was just, can you guess right? So the +1 and the go again kind of alleviates some of that heartache, but
yeah, that's true. I mean, we'll never know, but I think it probably would have felt a little bit better for sure. Obviously they weren't thinking a lot about a lot of stuff in that set. I mean, to be fair, they were a lot smaller team back then, and it was a huge success. So, you can't really, hate on it too much at this point. Now, speaking of weapons, what is your favorite weapon?
I think my favorite weapon of all time is probably Death Dealer.
Okay.
It's, different ranger, obviously, different use case, but just such a delightful, simple and elegant kind of way to give ranger card advantage for doing the thing that's like hindering them, which is like, kind of not having a weapon and having to load these arrows and kind of be beholden to this weird third axis that you have to deal with, and then getting rewarded with a card. So I think I've probably loaded Death Dealer more than any other weapon that's probably the weapon I've activated the most of any in the entire game.
That's fair. Really? You think so? Even playing Voltaire, where like you're on average doing it twice more. I played
Death Dealer Lexi,
wow.
Ice Lexi for a while, and I played Death Dealer Snapshot Lexi. So I've made Death Dealer fit into all of them.
That's fair.
I've played a lot of Death Dealer.
All right, that's fair. Now, what's your favorite equipment?
I always want to be more creative than this, but I think it's just New Horizon. I think the double arsenal is just such a cool thing that we always knew was coming. Like Command and Conquer in the second set worded all cards in arsenals. So we were just waiting for the hero to do it. And when we saw New Horizon, I was just like so stoked.
Yeah, I like New Horizons, but I will say, I am a hater of it in Riptide. A lot of people try to make it, listen, we just want to play the traps, play the mid-range game. I see so many Riptide decks where they load and they have like the second card in there and then they never use it. I'm like, and then you had to block with the New Horizons at some point and they lose their arsenal. But that's just, a pet peeve of mine, I'm very particular about my Riptides. So, but yeah, New Horizons, game changer for Lexi, and then like towards the end of Azalea's run, right? Like I was seeing a lot of like really cool New Horizons builds, and that card's just always going to be a consideration. I don't know. Is Marlin's not really playing it because they're playing the Crown of Dominion, but initial builds of Marlin, I saw a lot of New Horizons as well.
Yeah, it doesn't work well with the cannon is the main problem at the moment because there's not many good ways to get a face-up arsenal as Marlin yet. But if we, get a new cannon that loads, then it'll certainly be a consideration.
Yeah. Now, what's your favorite class and or talent card?
Okay, we'll do so I can answer twice here because this is tough. My favorite talent card is easy. It's Channel Lake Frigid.
Checks
I just
out.
think it's the perfect card. It does no damage. It just sets up what you're trying to do next turn. Again, a famous Leviism that I learned early on when I was learning his Azalea is disruption is not a win condition. And I think people over-index on how bad it feels to be disrupted, that nothing is technically happening. Like you're not taking damage. It just lets your opponent set up. And I love setting up. So Channel Lake Frigid, favorite talent card of all time. Favorite class card. All right, it's my favorite arrow, and it might not be the one you'd expect, but my favorite arrow / class card is Fatigue Shot. Just a common from Everfest, but just a beautiful design to kind of help us with, at the time, our worst matchup with the Guardians.
Yeah, Fatigue Shot's awesome. I love the art on Fatigue Shot too.
It's so
top
good.
tier. Now, what's your favorite generic card? Bonus points if it blocks for 2.
It's probably Premeditate. It's Premeditate or it's Fate Foreseen. I love opting too. So, but I'll take my bonus points and say Premeditate.
That's good. Yeah, stay on brand. It should have been a Ranger card.
It should have been, but it's not.
But it's not. People can still play it. I mean, Chain played Plunder Run, so you can jam some Premeditate, folks. What's your favorite token?
I'm just so on the nose, but it's Ponder. It's a Ponder token. Yeah,
that could have been any number of tokens that it could have been. Frailty, Blood Rot. The Rangers are making a lot of tokens, more than most. I feel like. So Ponder's fair though. Now, in the world of Wraith, what class and talent would you be, Zayn?
I would certainly be Ice. I would be the Ice Ranger that doesn't exist, and I hope we never get. But I don't think I have the lightning energy, but I think I would just be an Ice Ranger.
You seem pretty chill. Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Now, in your estimation, by whichever metric you choose, what is the greatest set of all time?
I think there's 3 different sets that I would answer, kind of depending on the angle. But I'll go with Outsiders. I think it was a nice meeting point of a lot of things, including the draft experience, the design, the creativity in that set. I think ultimately makes it just S tier.
Good answer. It is awesome. I did love drafting that set, although I just forced Riptide every single time, of course. And, obviously gave me Riptide, and, we got Codex, which, for better or worse was was pretty sick for the Rangers, and Assassin obviously got totally fleshed out at that point. And then they never printed any more Assassins after that, I heard. But no, just a lot. Now, let's get to the main topic here about Compendium of Wraith, right? This is an interesting set for a lot of reasons, because it marks the return of the supplemental set, which until they announced this, it seemed like they weren't going to do it again. And, they kind of said, oh, well, we didn't really mean never or whatever. Obviously never say never. So that's fine. It was kind of weird timing with Super Slam not really being supported with limited, although it did have a limited format, but we never got to see it played at a high level. So then we skipped 2 sets of like high level drafts, right? Which was interesting. But on the tail end of that statement, we do get the introduction of Silver Age in its fully tested form. And, I will say personally, after going through every card last week on the show, it feels more like the Silver Age set than anything else, right? This is everything outside of the Majestics, obviously. I was like, well, this seems like it's actually going to do something there, which is good, I think. Now, how are you feeling about it in like a general sense?
I think weird is a good way to describe it. I think it's challenged a lot of what we have come to expect and or what they've told us to expect. So, you mentioned you went through every card. That must have been an arduous process because this set is huge, like absolutely massive, which makes it hard to digest, especially like if you didn't play a Mystic hero, it's like very hard to make sense of the fact that there's like 12 Mystic cards and it's hard to evaluate how impactful or cool they are. So I guess what I'm saying is it's really hard to know how well it will be remembered in like a few months, because right now it is still chaotic. Like the way they released the commons and rares was chaotic. It was 180 cards on a random Friday afternoon that nobody expected. Then it was like a dump of Majestics that we all were like half distracted by trying to figure out Silver Age while they came out. So I still feel like I'm seeing cards from Compendium that I haven't like properly read, because it's just so overwhelming. So I guess I'm saying I'm happy with the way they did it, in a sense that they like really gave something to everybody, but like that it's really hard to digest, and it's a lot. It's a lot of set.
It is. And then, we had like events right away. We had, they did obviously they always do the world premiere. The weird thing to me about the world premiere was, you mentioned like commons and rares. Obviously they wanted to spoil that early so that people who are going to play in the calling that weekend had like somewhat of an idea of what to do. Right. And then, we got the Majestics or whatever. And like, there were some surprises, right? From the opening, I guess, on that Friday, but it didn't feel like whoa, it wasn't like Scurv or even like the Maori Pleiades from Super Slam, right? It didn't feel like we got any kind of like wow factor, which kind of felt like a missed opportunity. I think there was a lot of expectations that perhaps we would have actually seen new heroes. This is the first time I think ever we haven't had like a single new hero. What do you make of that? Like, was that the right choice here? Because clearly there's a ton of heroes already, and it's a hard job to already balance them. And I think they do a good job for what it's worth. But no new heroes feels a little strange to me.
I would have loved them to do adult Blaze and then rare Blaze, like, so she's legal in Sage. Now I don't know if she's probably really, really powerful in Sage, as we've seen Kano do so well, and she has a bit more flexibility than Kano, I would say. So I think it was maybe the wrong decision not to put any heroes, but I also understand that they really wanted it to be as focused as they could, despite how broad and kind of chaotic the task of giving support to every single class talent combination would already be.
Yeah, I definitely, I can understand that, and maybe it is for the best, right? Like, I think it might have been a little too soon to get the adult Blaze, right? Like, we just finished the eulogy for Kano, and and like I think a nice break personally would be nice. Although she would be a cool, hero to see as an adult. And even like an adult Terra wouldn't feel too bad, right? Like, but how many Guardians do we actually need is I guess probably the question that they're asking. Now, I will say, something that I think it was from like a devlog or something like that Brian or James said that we'll look back on this set and say it's one of the greatest of all time, or is the greatest of all time. I think as the dust settles right now, it doesn't feel like that at all. But the one thing that I keep coming back to about the set is the rares and how seemingly impactful they are, right? I think that they are very impactful for Silver Age, and like some of them are creeping into impactful for Classic Constructed. We'll see what that actually looks like. And when I look back at like a set like Everfest or Crucible, you're like, okay, like actually some of these rares, like, tend to be iconic, right? I think of Marvine Skies from Crucible and like Wild Ride might have been a common from Everfest, but like clearly like been reprinted out of the wazoo because it's so good. Is that your feeling here as well? What do you think? Is this going to be remembered as the greatest set of all time?
I really hope not. I hope it's not. It's certainly not going to be my favorite, or even in the running. I think it's a cool set that adds a lot of depth, and I also think that it will not land with certain players, myself included. I think it's a cool addition to the game, and I already can't wait for the next set where we get heroes in a draft format. I think people really just connect to the heroes, and this not having a hero coming out of it just makes it a little bit harder to like get behind as like your favorite set. Like if someone said this was their favorite set, I would think that was kind of weird. Like it's like, why?
Yeah I would agree. I think I would be like, come on, I mean, have you seen Heavy Hitters? It's just the greatest set of all time.
I would be like, what hero do you play? Like, and why is that set not your favorite set?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like Jarl. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But yeah, it is interesting. Now, I guess the big pull of this set, right, and why I guess it's allegedly selling so well, are the antiquity packs and the reprints. How are you feeling about that? Right. Is it kind of delivering on its promise? Do you think? Are we getting, I mean, it doesn't seem like prices are going down too much right now, although, there's conflicting reports there. So, it is also the first week of the set being out and things are always a little bit inflated. But do you think it's going to deliver on its promise, I guess?
I think it will bring down the cost of the CNC's E-Strikes shelters. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Tunic, Balance, Crown of Providence, a little bit already we've seen. Crown of Providence is down like almost to $50, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Now the gems, I don't know. I think the gems are a complicated problem that they've yet to solve. Do the antiquity packs deliver? I'm gonna have to say no, which I normally like lean positive and fairly gracious towards LSS, but I do think, and I'll declare my bias. I've opened 5 packs and I've gotten like literally nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten a rusted relic, no foils, nothing. So I don't want to be like too over-indexed on the fact that mine have been bad, but I also just like don't particularly like the EA antiquity cards that much either. Some of the cold foils are cool. Like I really like the cold foil Gorganian Tome.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, that one just like is like a perfect reprint to me. Or just like it didn't even need a reprint. It just is like a cool card that deserved a new treatment. But like some of them just look weird. Like a reprint of a Amnesia with a weird border that's not foil.
Yeah.
I just don't know who that's for. Like I don't know who that is, who's the target audience for that. Um, so for me, it's not like a huge success. Like I liked the High Seas treasure packs. I thought that was a fun layer. Whereas this one just feels a little bit odd to me.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I opened the case, right? So, I always get probably at least a case of every new set. And like opening this was interesting. It never feels as good opening the supplemental packs, to be honest, because it's less cards. I know that it's the same kind of like distribution really of like the amount or percentage of commons and rares and stuff like that. But it always feels a little weird when you're doing that. And yeah, it felt weird knowing that my hit was in that one pack, right? Like I know there's some hits you can get from the actual packs, but like the real hit is like kind of reserved for the antiquity pack if it's going to be there. And I did open like the foil CNC, right? Like I opened something good, but I don't know. I mean, whatever. That doesn't feel like it's for me. I'm still going to be rocking my Arcane Rising CNCs till they don't even work anymore, right? So
that's right.
I don't know if this one feels like a little weird to open, but like maybe it's just not for us, and that's what I kind of keep coming back to. It's like, yeah, I mean, like if I got into the game around High Seas and I start seeing like, okay, like I have a little bit more access to some of this stuff, like I'm pretty happy to open it. So maybe I, that's how I need to look at this set, but I'm not sure. It doesn't, like, I'm with you on the treasure pack is kind of cool, but this feels like so isolated in a way. It feels like separate from the rest of the set.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
And like the cold foil antiquity cards feel special and like an interesting idea, but then they're so rare that like I feel like people aren't even trying to get them. And maybe it's too early, or the subset of people I've talked to, but they're so rare that people are just like, nah, I already got the foil, like rainbow foils. I don't want to, have to ship 3 different ones from 3 different places because those are the only ones I can find. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I think more of the cards should have been cold foil. I think some of the reprints didn't need a fancy new border. Just reprint Amnesia, reprint Cut Through the Facade. Leave them as is. We don't need a new treatment for them. But then if you want the cold foil one, throw the cool border on it and make it a little bit more common. That would be my like how I would have wanted to change those packs, but who knows?
Yeah, it's interesting. Now let's hit something a little bit positive about Pen, at least in my opinion. Does it enhance gameplay? And I think if the goal was to really enhance Silver Age, I feel like they're doing it right. The Silver Age meta is a little weird right now. I don't think it's fully realized, and we're going to see that in a couple weeks. But like it does feel like Decimator Great Axe, Briar, and Kano at the top, right? But we only have a couple, like 2 major tournaments, maybe 3 at this point of like actual data on that. But going through this set, I do feel like, oh, okay, like I can see the vision here. Like, oh, I'm playing in a PQ this weekend. I'm playing Fang. And I'm like, okay, cool. These new equipment pieces are awesome. The Unity equipment. I'm like, this is so cool. It feels like better for an aggro deck than Decimator, but kind of works out for Decimator too. And then also, like just the random like talent cards kind of felt pretty neat. Is that your experience with it too? Obviously, we don't really know what CC is going to do yet, but it should be interesting.
For sure. I think the equipment are already having massive impacts. I think, you called out the Unity stuff for Warrior. That's transformative for them in the format. I think they needed it. Should they have printed all 4 pieces? Maybe not. The gloves that block 3 are massive for Kano. Absolutely huge. Like I was playing Briar, and those gloves basically say like your burn up shock turn is not hitting. It does not matter what you do, it's not hitting. And Wizard famously would often play CC games with 0 points of armor, so them getting a 3 block And it's not just for them. Obviously, Enigma and other decks can play it. That one's super impactful. I am a little sad that the only like Briar card, and again, I'm not like a Briar guy, but like the only new card she's running is basically the Earth Nimblism.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the only, some of the equipment we're playing the Spell Void Hat, which is basically Spellfray Hood. It technically can block one if you really need, but so I kind of was hoping there'd be more like deck cards that see play, and maybe we just need a bit more time. I will say my Sage pet deck is Florian, like Nebula Blade Florian.
Ooh.
And he got tons of cards. Lots of cards that buff your weapon, that make embodiments of Earth, and banish like auras from grave, which is perfect. So you can get online in 1 decomposition instead of 2. But I think I wanted it to hit the top tier decks more, but it's also possible that this is just too early and we haven't seen, people innovate with the new cards fully yet.
Yeah. I mean, it is the funny thing. Like, if we were to react early, I think the funniest thing to me is I think there was a little bit of doom and gloom about Wizard, like not being good enough in this format, right? Because, like I was like, no Waning Moon, like, what are we going to do? And then like Kano's just winning everything. So you're just like, and people are going to have a reaction to that in the meta, no doubt, right? People are going to be more prepared. And like part of what I'm saying is like, people probably came in and were like, whatever, it's Wizard. Maybe they'll steal a few games, but then like, oh no, they're actually really good still. So it is interesting. Now, the question about, there's something, and we're going to talk about another one of James White's tweets during the listener questions, but there was one that stood out to me. And unfortunately, James White is not on Blue Sky, so I had to log back into X the Everything app to take a look at what he's been saying. And, somebody asked about the price tag on a box, right? It's expensive, right? But everything's expensive. And obviously, us in the States, there's other barriers happening as well. We have to keep that in mind. It is a premium, or it's a luxury product in a way, right? That's what TCGs are. But somebody asked about the price, and James White, said it's a premium set. That was the answer, right? And, totally entitled to have that opinion, right? Do you think this is a premium set?
I'll say yes, but barely. And also, I'm glad that he thinks it is, in the sense that I'm glad he's not saying this is the new normal. Every set will be 140 or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's benchmarking this one as unique. And so we can expect to have, our $100 draft boxes or whatever back with the next set, instead of this higher price. Is it really a premium set? I guess so. It doesn't hit what I would want. Like High Seas felt like a premium set to me. I couldn't necessarily tell you why. I mean, obviously the treasure packs are a big part of it, but the extra cold foil, like commons, people complained about cold foil draft chaff. I hear what they're saying, but also it was a cool addition that they didn't need to do. And, anytime you get cold foil allies, it feels good to me. All the little zombies were fun. So to me, that one felt more like a premium set than this one. But maybe that's just because I already had a Tunic and a Balance and my Command and Conquers. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting perspective he's coming from. I don't know if I fully agree, but
yeah, it's like a weird thing, right? Like I think maybe by a lot of metrics it is, right? I think this Antiquity pack, although maybe we're not the biggest fan of it, is a huge selling point, right? From a collectability standpoint, and the reprints. So like I totally understand, and like from that perspective, but like to me, I feel like a premium set, and I think High Seas is a great example where you have the cool thing, right, with the treasure pack. You have really cool limited play, right? Like, oh, it's like, this is a premium set. I can buy a box and I can have fun with that box right away, right? That is a premium kind of like thing that you get out of it. In my opinion, I think that should be part of what a premium set is a limited experience. And then on top of that, you got like a great, like mostly great CC experience out of the heroes from that set, right? Mostly just gravy, but we're starting to see Marlon do some stuff. Marlon was a LL player when that format exists. So yeah, it was. I just wanted to pose the question because I saw that. I'm like, is it premium? And like, what do they mean by that? But I definitely agree. I'm glad that he thinks it is, right? And yeah, I guess it would feel bad if he said something else. But yeah, we just wanted to charge that much, maybe. But it's interesting. So all in all, did this deliver on its promises? Did it hit the mark? For us, doesn't feel like maybe, but you think overall?
I think it's not at the Everfest and Crucible of War level, but I think it's maybe better than Dust Till Dawn. I think like those are all the expansion sets or supplemental sets. I think Dust Till Dawn it did a lot of cool things, but I think it's often spoken about negatively. Whereas Crucible of War and Everfest are often kind of lauded for their impact.
We also had Dynasty.
A lot of Dynasty, of course. Yeah. So maybe this one kind of sits right there in the middle. Maybe at Dynasty level or slightly above Dynasty level. Yeah, that's tough. I'll say it hit the mark, but like it didn't go above and beyond.
It's fair. Hey, listen, D's get degrees or C's get degrees here. No, I agree. And like, I don't like to get too negative on the show, but this felt like, a lot of people are talking about it. One final thought for me is I'm having a lot of fun with Silver Age, and I think I will look back on a lot of the cards from this set very fondly, right? And I think that a lot of people will. I think for the enfranchised players, it just doesn't feel for us like it's for us so much. Like it feels truly like for the people that have got into the game in the last year. Here's the reprints everybody's asking about, yada yada yada. And also, here's this really cool format that's very affordable, and you can get some really cool commons and rares from this set. From that perspective, I think it will hit the mark for a lot of people, and I think that's very fair. And, I will be digging out of my bulk for this plenty of times, I know, in the future. And I think that probably means it's a good set. Great set? Not sure, but good. But those are my final thoughts. And
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I will not be talking about Compendium of Wraith ever again. Just kidding. We have a lot of content to make in the next couple months until Monarch 3. Is it happening? Some people seem to think so, and you know who you are. Now, let's get to some listener questions. These come from the Buds Discord, free for anybody to join. Zayn joined today, actually. How about that? Preemptively. That's very, very cool. Yeah.
I'm surprised I wasn't in there, honestly. I was like looking through my channels. I'm like, where is it? Guess I wasn't in there.
Well, welcome and enjoy. The first comes from, first of all, somebody we need to congratulate, Capolo, who might be a father now, I've heard, and and that is very exciting. Congratulations, my friend. And let's see. Well, actually, I do have to say the first question Capolo submitted, I didn't write down, but it was Zayn who, but obviously he's from Southern California, so he must know you. The question, he has 3 questions. The first is, do you prefer a metagame that is more open and balanced, or one that has a clear top 2 to 3 decks?
I want to say that my answer is in more open metagame, but I also am a player that really likes to counter what the best decks are doing. I like to be right around that like fourth, fifth best deck. And don't judge me for playing Briar. That's not like a normal. I don't think you could really do that in Silver Age. I guess you kind of could, but in general, in CC, I like to be right around that like kind of fourth, fifth best deck, targeting the top two. So when it is a narrow meta of 2 to 3 kind of clear best decks, I often find a lot of fun trying to like build the deck that can, get around those decks' weaknesses. When a metagame is really open, sometimes that leads to the feels bads of like, oh, I hit the matchup I didn't want to see. Whereas when it's more narrow, it's like you kind of knew what to expect. And so it's on you if you were prepared for it, I guess. So they have strengths and weaknesses. I think the honest answer is like, I think I like it when there's a clear 2 or 3 best decks. It doesn't mean I'm playing one of them. I might be, but generally not.
Yeah, it's understandable, right? Like, you know what to prepare for, and you can. It alleviates that side of preparation, which is nice. Next question he asked is, what is your ultimate goal in Flesh and Blood that makes you say, I made it?
I really wanted the PT top 8, I think was, a very, that's a huge goal, right? Like that's a very exclusive and challenging threshold to hit. We got really close in Baltimore, and kind of haven't gotten particularly close since, gotten in the vicinity, but I think top 8ing a PT is kind of like the top of the mountain that I would strive to. I know that I could do it. I've been one game away. So I think that would be my answer, is top 8ing a PT.
You going to Yokohama?
I am not, unfortunately.
You going to Vegas?
I'm hoping to.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see you in the top 8 in Vegas. And then he also asked, why aren't you part of the local AGE pro team?
I don't know if I have a great answer for this. I don't know. I think that they do their own thing. They're fairly private, and I play with Yuki and Ian and the Stroop Waffles, so they keep to themselves a little bit, and it is what it is.
That's fair. That is fair. Next, we have a couple questions from Sigma, who asked, how does it feel to be the saner podcaster of all the Attack Action podcasts?
Feels great. The most sane doesn't mean I am sane, but the most sane. Sometimes I don't know if you see. There's a recent episode where they pushed me to the limit where I just could not believe that none of them were seeing what I was saying. But so sometimes it's hard, but most of the time it's good to be the sane one.
Which episode was that?
It's the most recent one that's out. We've recorded one since, but we were talking about the chain dev talk, and I was giving them credit for like acknowledging that chain is broken, but then also them saying like, people forget that he only won one event. Mm-hmm. And I was basically just saying, yeah, that's true. And they were all saying, well, no, but he was warping. And they all were losing their minds. And I was like, okay, yes, but it is technically true. He is broken. They're acknowledging that. That's what the video is. And also, he only won one event.
Yeah. Listen, what is that meme? They hated him because he spoke the truth or whatever. Next question from Sigma is, do you have any pet decks for fun that you love to play and wish it got more cards to be competitive?
I think the buds will like my answer here, but I actually do play a lot of Levia. I basically had a Levia deck sleeved up since literally since that calling I talked about earlier when I played against Isaac. I have a soft spot for Brute. I've played Rhinar and Leviah both. I think Leviah just kind of has been landing for me a little bit more as far as like what I want to be doing. I really love Hooves of the Shadow Beast as a card. And I think that they've been doing a good job supporting Leviah. Would love maybe one or two more pieces. Would love to see something Art of War adjacent back in her kit now that we've seen Fi get his Art of War replacement.
That's fair. That's fair. And we got Pound of Flesh. I think that card's awesome. I mean,
it is cool.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny, right? Like, you know, am I thinking of it correctly? It's like basically coal. I mean, not basically coal, not quite as good, but you know,
Cole's instant speed text is pretty relevant.
Yeah, just a little bit. And then we have one from Pat Shaw, former Flesh and Blood podcaster, now lurking in the shadows, obviously, by asking a question every once in a while. Asks, is it weird that James White basically admitted to using print runs to set the secondary market for his game? Now, when he asked this, I asked for a source, and the source was, I guess, a tweet, because James White was just on a show, I think Dozer's channel, and somebody asked James, I can't get my head around why you reprint cards and make them harder to pull. I love this game so much. The decisions are so frustrating, in kind of reference to like every time that there's a reprint, it seems like it's at a higher rarity or harder to get, which I can understand the frustration with that. And then James White kind of like responded and said, so this doesn't happen, and sent a TCG player link to Felling of the Crown, which I think at the time was like sitting at like $3. So, what do you think about that? Like, I don't know if I agree with Pat here saying that, you know, it's as much of an omission as you know he's alluding to, but it's more like, hey, we didn't like how that worked out last time, so maybe let's fix it.
I think that they have to solve such an impossible problem when they're deciding rarities and how they're printing things. And, you know, do they the spirit of the original tweet to James is basically like, look, people want Fabled, people want Shelter from the Storm. We don't want to pay crazy numbers for these. And I also totally see James White's perspective that you don't want iconic cards as bulk, right? Like, and there's it like Felling of the Crown should be more expensive than Germinate. I don't know how to explain that in like a way that's super logical, but like it should be the more impactful and expensive card than the other Majestics in the deck. And I'm not saying it should have been $40 or $50. That was always crazy. I think people were kind of hoarding copies. We kind of saw when they reprinted it, like tons of copies just appeared on the market from the Rosetta printing, which was odd. So I guess what I'm saying is I sympathize with having to like estimate the exact right number to print. And I think in the past they've done it quite well. Like I think Codex of Frailty was done perfectly. It was too expensive. It stayed there for a little while. It was prohibitive for people who were picking up Assassin, where a lot of new players are, you know, want to play Assassin. They printed it as Legendary, which people critiqued, but it did its job. That card is in the $25 to $30 range, which is fair for a card of its, you know, power level. And not that, you know, the more powerful a card, the more expensive it needs to be. But I do think that the iconic class pieces should carry a slight premium. The codexes should be more than, you know, than Endless Arrow, and Felling should be more expensive than Heartbeat of Candlehold. And I think that James White seeing $3 Fellings feels like the card is not properly being like respected, or I don't know. Like he's frustrated that they overprinted it. So is he setting the secondary market? No, I don't think that they're necessarily targeting numbers, but I think it's like a vibe thing, right? Like $3 felling doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the same way that $50 felling didn't feel right.
Yeah, it's an impossible task. Like you said. I mean, I look back at when I played Magic, when I first got into Magic, there's this card called Tarmogoyf, that I think I don't know, at the time, like it was like $80 to $100, right? And I think that was a pretty expensive Magic card, like just in general. You had to buy 4 of them. You needed 4 for a playset, mm-hmm. right? So you're dumping like $400 for a playset for like this like rare, because I think it was before they made a new like their majestic rarity, mythic, and I think, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, but like it started getting reprinted like a lot. And I mean, this happens in Magic in general, but like Tarmogoyf's like the idea here is like $100. Yeah, too much for this kind of staple, but like $1 is not like great for the people that had those that opened like in that original set. I think it was like Future Sight or something like that in like 2007. They're like, oh my God, I got this $100 card. And now it's like, I'll hold on to it. I can't wait. Like, I play with it, but like, if I ever need to like, sell it or whatever. And then they look one day, they got it on Magic and they're like, oh man, this is like 50 cents now. So like, I get that. It's impossible to even like do it, but at least they're like conscious of it, I think.
Yeah. I think they've done it well more than they've done it poorly. I think the one you can critique them the most on is the Fableds.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a totally fair friction point, especially given that they've been very meta relevant cards for like a long time. Like it's not just like Kano played them and now they're gone. It's like a lot of decks wanted Eye of Ophidia. Kind of a lot of decks want Tropoldani. Now, should they print 1,000? Should they be super common? No, I don't think so. Should they have been more common than they are in Compendium? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the felling and plow under thing is also them going too far, and that's what James is acknowledging. Basically, like,
yeah,
we tried to service the community, and I think that we kind of missed the mark on that. Maybe they over pulled back in Compendium, but it really, like, it's just an impossible problem. And I think that you really don't want your game to be worthless.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people on Twitter or wherever, they talk as if they do. The game, cards should all be dirt cheap.
Yeah.
And I see the sentiment and like, I know what they're saying, but you don't want it to be worthless. And they really have to work hard to toe the line.
Yeah. And like, people will often point to whatever game it is. And it's almost like being like kind of dirt cheap. But it's almost always tied to like a huge IP that doesn't care if their game is dirt cheap, because it's just an extension of their IP, where this is the IP for Flesh and Blood. So, yeah, it's interesting. But thanks for the question, Pat. You should play more Flesh and Blood and podcast again, too. But this was a lot of fun, Zayne. Thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. Can you please plug all of your things? And thank you.
Thanks for having me. Attack Action Podcast is, if you want to hear more of me trying to wrangle some cats, that's a good place to do it. My favorite episode of every set is coming out this week. It's the art draft. We just recorded it yesterday. This is the hardest art draft we've ever had. There's just so many cards. So if you like the art of Flesh and Blood and you've never been a part of our art draft, come stop by. It's the best episode we do. That's kind of it. You can find me on Discord if you really want. I just joined the Buds Discord, so I'm Fuchsia there. No need to follow me on socials. There's nothing going on there.
All right. Yeah, please do check out Attack Action Podcast. Obviously, all the members have now been on the show. It's the longest running podcast in Flesh and Blood history. And, and they're not stopping. They are not stopping. So hop over there, check it out. I've popped onto a couple episodes too. In terms of where you can find me, you can find me mostly on Blue Sky at freshbudspod. Check out the Discord that Zayne graciously mentioned as well. Check out the YouTube. If you're listening, give us the old like, comment, subscribe. That all helps. And then what else? Oh, I mean, if you're listening on Spotify, you can, rate. I think you can even comment on that. And then I have another podcast called Fresh Juice. I do with my cousin. We talk about indie video games. That one's a lot of fun. And I got into some hot water on TikTok on a video that my cousin posted of me giving a really hot take. And guess what? The TikTok commenters, they hated it. They think I'm the worst person ever. So we talk about it on this week's episode. So if you go check that out, that's cool. And also Patreon, I do a bonus episode mostly every week, depending on time, but it's a good place to support the show. If you enjoy it, it's all in the show notes below. Finally, Zayne, always like to end the show talking about food, because I love food. What is some food you want to shout out right now?
We did tacos on Saturday after the event at a place in San Diego called the Taco Stand. And man, I've been there a bunch of times and I'm always impressed. And then this time was just particularly good. So just go get some authentic tacos, throw some spicy habanero salsa on there and have a good time.
I fight with people all the time. I always post the question, what's better, burgers or tacos?
Oh, it's not close.
I think it's not close. Tacos are, I'm glad that you agree, because I think people are a little too burger pilled, but that's that's another controversial take for me. But great episode. Everybody stay fresh. And also, we don't have time for Charmer, but we'll get to him at some point. Be good.